Welcome to this Go Beyond webinar. I'm Daniela De Gregorio from the Plinius Study Center at University of Naples, a research center specialized in geo and climate risk and competence center of the Italian Civil Protection for volcanic risk. And today we share what come out of our second workshop and take you inside the Pozzuoli Pilot. Our title, From Early Warning to Action, says it all. The Go Beyond challenge is no longer about better forecasts, it's about turning them into action. Kindly note that this session will be recorded. If you do not wish to appear in the recording, please keep your camera and microphone turned off throughout the session. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A where we'll be happy to address your questions. Please note that this part will not be recorded, and you are welcome to type your question in the chat, or if you prefer to ask it directly, you are also welcome to unmute yourself at that time. Here is our agenda. We start with a brief introduction to Go Beyond. The section 1 covers the lessons from our second workshop. Section 2 goes into the Pozzuoli Pilot. Section 3 shows how the Go Beyond platform is used in practice by the municipality of Pozzuoli. And we close with the Q&A section. The second Go Beyond workshop was held on 21 and 22nd of April at Naples, at University of Naples. And we have 2 intensive days, 4 roundtables, more than 20 speakers from over 10 countries, and more than 100 participants. The 4 roundtables are on volcanic eruption and tsunamis, landslide early warning, seismic risk and impact-based warning, and multi-risk challenges. In addition, there is also a special session on site-specific warning with operational representatives of our pilot authorities. The first roundtable analyzes a question that sounds technical but is actually very practical. When we have an early warning system for volcanic eruption or tsunamis, what does it actually take for it to work in the field? We look at 2 very different cases. The first is the Turkey earthquake on February 2023. And more accurate tool existed, the probabilistic tsunami forecast, but it didn't be approved by the international body in charge. And the result is that a better scientifically validated tool tested for over 5 years was left unused. And the second case is Iceland, where recent eruptions were managed well, not because the technology was more advanced, but because there was a defined relationship of trust between scientists, authorities, and with protocols already tested before the event. And the thread connected both cases are 2. Being tsunami or volcano ready is not a certification, it's a culture. And in addition, it means the entire chain, science, governance, and communication with the citizen is ready before the event arrives. In addition, another point, in emergency, speed matters more than perfection. Having pre-computed scenarios is often more useful than running a simulation in real time. 4, and the Turkish case illustrated this clearly. Better science is not enough. If governance doesn't act on the result, tools can sit unused for years. And 5, there's also a less discussed but important issue, because no seismic tsunami triggered by submarine landslide or volcanic collapses are still an open frontier, and the warning system for this event are incompleted, and in the Mediterranean area we are exposed to them. The second roundtable focused on early warning system for rainfall and used landslide. And the first issue is that the algorithm is not the problem for landslide warning. Before any model, you need to know the territory, its geology, geomorphology, soil cover, existing landslide inventory. Without the foundation, alert thresholds are miscalibrated, and the system produces more noise than useful information. The second obstacle is equally concrete. Warning systems work only if they are embedded in a standard operating procedures of civil protection authorities, and not external tools to consult occasionally, but as part of the decision-making process. So improving a landslide warning system does not only mean improving the forecast model. 4 points where the discussion found broad agreement. 1, territorial knowledge is the non-negotiable foundation. Without geology and geomorphology, alert thresholds are wrong from the start, and no technology can compensate for that gap. 2, threshold calibration is not just a technical choice, it's also a political one. Too many false alarms as institutional cost, but too few as human cost. So authorities need to be part of that decision. 3, there is also an open frontiers. Knowing that the slope will fail is not enough. Where does the mass go? For example, which roads are and building does it reach? And propagation modeling is still the weak point in the most systems. And finally, this is exactly what GOBEYOND is working on, integrating warning system on operational procedure, not just placing them alongside them. Okay. The third roundtable addressed the seismic risk, especially the earthquake warning system, the one that gives a few seconds of warning before the strongest shaking arrives. And the discussion made one thing clear from the start. The main problem in Europe is not at the scientific frontier. The systems exist and work. The issue is the so-called blind zone, the area closer to the epicenter where the alert arrives too late. And that is a physical constraint, not a technical one. More sensor won't solve it. What actually makes a difference is shown by system already in operation, like the Istanbul gas network, the Italian high speed, the rail, or San Francisco SBART. In all of these cases, the system works because the decision to be taken was defined before the event. The alert doesn't ask anyone to decide in real time, and it uses a protocol already approved. In terms of key messages, the central principle is this: is the point one. Pre-positioned decision creates value. A warning system that arrives and finds someone who still needs to decide what to do has already lost precious time. The second point is that the real frontiers is not shaking intensity, but impact. How many buildings are damaged, which infrastructure is at risk, and go beyond work precisely in this direction, moving from shaking alerts to impact-based alerts. And three, a system also need to be robust when things go wrong. For example, latency, redundancy, and failure resistance matter as much as algorithmic accuracy. And finally, in Europe, the problem is not a lack of sensor, but the fragmentation. And a federated early warning backbone is needed. This is a crucial point. The fourth roundtable brought the discussion to its most complex level. It analyzed the effect of multiple risks interacting in a dense, vulnerable urban area like Campi Flegrei, and addressing this complexity requires two things. First, a structured framework like the MISI approach, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive approach developed by a Return project that maps the urban system in layers from the geosphere through infrastructure, through to building a network and making multi-hazard risk tractable and operational. And second, the multi-parameter monitoring. No single indicators tell you what is happening beneath the volcano. Only the integration of geochemical, geodetic, seismic, and thermal data gives the full picture. And three essential points are defined from this for the roundtable 4. First, hazards don't just add up; they interact and amplify each other. A warning system that looks at one risk at a time not sufficient in place like Campi Flegrei, and integrated approach is necessary. Second, translating scientific knowledge into operational tools usable real time is the core of the Go Beyond, and Pozzuoli Pilot is the concrete test of that principle. And third, and the most delicate, science reduces uncertainty but doesn't eliminate it. Trust between institutions, between scientists and authorities, between the authorities and citizens is built over time through clear communication and consistent institutional behavior. It cannot be improvised during a crisis. And finally, the last thematic session is dedicated to site-specific warning. And this is perhaps where the gap between what exists and what is needed is most visible. For example, official warnings are broad by design. They cover the large area and give consistent thresholds. But the people on the ground needs something different, and the session explored how to close that gap, building local warning that work alongside the official system, and understanding what actually prevents and warning from becoming action. And three concrete lessons are identified from direct field experience. The first, every intermediate step in the decision chain adds time and the risk of distortion. Shortening that chain is not not a technical point. It requires institutional negotiation. The second is perhaps the most important, a great tool given to a team that doesn't know it is a useless tool. Whether a system gets used or forgotten depends on whether local team build it with you, tested it, and keep it updated. This also matters, for example, after election. If people change and procedures aren't transferred, the chain breaks. And the third, exercise are not optional. They are routine maintenance, and the only way to find out whether the chain works before it's actually needed is to test it regularly. And the message that ties all of this together, a warning that produces no action, is a warning that has failed, regardless of how technical accurate it was. And now I hand over to Professor Giulio Zuccaro, Senior Expert at Plinius and a member of the Italian Major Risk Commission, the national advisory body that supports civil protection decision-making on risk caused by all major natural man-made hazards, from seismic and volcanic risk to hydrogeological, chemical, and industrial threats. Please.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. So this is Pozzuoli, the pilot that we in the Go Beyond have analyzed. Is based at the in the middle of a caldera of Campi Flegrei. What you see here, this is my arrow. I don't know if you see, if you can follow my arrow, is exactly the Pozzuoli municipality. And in the Pozzuoli, in the caldera Campi Flegrei, and so Pozzuoli, you have seismic activity, bradyseism, that is a slow seismic, that is an uplift of the ground, as you all know, and ashfall, basically. These are the three phenomena that we have considered within this pilot. But of course, in case of eruption, many other phenomena will impact on the area. Pyroclastic flow, gas emission, LARS, and so on. But within this real crisis, because this is another important aspect to take into account, we have had the opportunity that during the Go Beyond project, a real crisis, volcanic crisis in Pozzuoli arise. So, and we will discuss later about that. This is the real crisis in which we are ongoing. That is basically an uplift of under 50 centimeters since 2005 up to 2025. So in the last 20 years. And we have had in the past other crises in the 70s, in the 80s here, and in that case we had other activity and emergency activity by the civil protection, like mass evacuations and new town built at the time, like Monteruscello. Where we posed all the population at the time that was evacuated by Pozzuoli. Now we are in the new phase of ground uplift that began, as I said, in 2005, and we are still ongoing actually. And apart the uplift, we have had some relevant earthquakes consequent to the uplift of the bradyseism that release energy with a magnitude duration that goes between 4.2 to 4.6, and you can appreciate here in the picture down on the left the location, the localization of the earthquakes. Okay. This event, obviously, as you can imagine, impacted building and population. So has been organized within some areas, sure is safe areas, some tents and some shelter to the population that was evacuated for the building damage. The damage are not so dramatic. I mean, we have had dead or few injuries. We had no building collapse. However, you can see in the picture that there are in any case some relevant damage for people living in the house that has been evacuated in the shelter. Civil protection faces major operational challenges soon, and with the collaboration of the national civil protection, municipality, regional civil protection, so all the measures were called at the table to collaborate for the emergency. And so, as I say, in the Go Beyond, we follow in a way the action that were decided from the authorities, giving some support on one side as a pre-news study center that was a center of competence of civil protection. But on one side, this activity was coincident on the Pozzuoli pilot within Go Beyond. So this was really a peculiar situation where we were able to test what we were doing in the project, what we were called to do in the real crisis. So we are speaking about an area in Pozzuoli of 500,000 people in the red zone and 840,000 people for the ashfall exposure zone. This is part of the civil protection plan against an expected eruption. However, the decree under 40 of 2023 was concerned just a smaller part of the entire area impacted by a potential eruption. That was the Bradisism area. That was a smaller one, was an inner part of 84,000 people, and involved Pozzuoli, Bacoli, Western Naples, that were the part that can see in the picture as the circle within the wider red zone. This is a detail of this area. This area, this intervention area for Bradisism, as was defined by law, include, as I said, Pozzuoli, Bacoli, and the western part of Naples, and was characterized by the prevalent seismic localization and the uplift, so the contour line of an uplift of 20 centimeters since 2006. The goal, the objective of the plan was to build up a national plan for seismic risk prevention, focus at area affected by Bradisism, and this was to assess the vulnerability of the building environment and define mitigation priority. I want to underline that this was actually exactly one of the goals that we had in Go Beyond, and I have to say that this has been the first time in Italy, and perhaps in Europe, I don't know, I don't remember other case where law invest money for knowledge to assess vulnerability before a real event. In fact, at the time of this decree, actually all the major earthquakes that I mentioned before was happened yet. There was just a great attention paid by the population and by authority to this continuous uplift and to the fact that an earthquake of major magnitude was expected. So, it started the first part that was foreseen within the decree of collection of buildings. So we, with the Plinius forms, we made a rapid survey in the area by classifying the building according to the EMS scale, 19A scale, as a building of typology A, B, C, and D. And this has been carried out on roughly 9,000 ordinary buildings. So we were able to identify priority because for each cell in which we have discretized the area, each cell was of 250 meters by 250 meters, we could give the exposure basically. And so saying which were the cell with the major concentration of a weak building, or building A, or B, or C. And the idea was that after this prioritization of the cell, another form, much more detailed, that allowed the technician to go inside the building, not just from outside as the Plinius form, that is called the Curtis form, that is a structural characterization for seismic potential impact, where we could be able, obviously under the request of the population, because to get in the building we should be called to go on the building and get in the building, we were able to make a more detailed vulnerability analysis in order to foresee potential possible investment for mitigation. Few words on how we define this prioritization. We define this as simple formula in order to evaluate an absolute index that gave the density of the vulnerable buildings in the cell, and the relative index. The difference is that at the denominator, there is all the maximum number of the buildings, or the number of the buildings in the cell. This in order not to lose any kind of potential vulnerable building, because if in the cell there are few buildings, obviously this gives you a very low index, because in the cell there are 4 buildings. But if those 4 buildings are very vulnerable, obviously you could have the maximum high of the index if you divided not by the maximum buildings in the cell, but the of all the cell, but the maximum building of that cell. So this was in a way combined in order not to lose any potential high vulnerable buildings. On that, obviously, we could evaluate also reconstruction cost of the buildings, the indirect cost, like service disruption, productivity, obviously the intangible, the human loss and social loss was not considered in terms of cost. But if you see the table in the bottom part of the slide, you can see that if you consider 2 scenarios for intensity 8 or intensity 9, you can have the valuation of the cost of a potential earthquakes in the area by no mitigation, and by applying some strategy of mitigation. You see that the first strategy is to pay money, cost, invest, to transfer all the building A that are the most vulnerable to B, or all building A to C. Of course, this is an exercise, but gives you see the quantity, the evaluation. You see that for intensity 8, the benefit of investment between to change A in B, to enforce A in B, is only of the 3%. Of course, you are not considered the intangible injuries, lives, and so on. But if you go on the other side, impact scenario by intensity 9, that is potentially expected, you could have for the strategy 2 a 25% of delta. Last things that I want to mention is that on the base of our analysis, that was the same actually that we upload on the framework within GOBEYOND. We make all the study together with the BEI, with the European Investment Bank, that was prone to give a funding of a potential financial support of 1.4 billion. It was really a great result, because shows that this kind of analysis at the territorial scale, giving some prioritization, quantification, is enough to climb potential investment. So this is the apart of the BEI, this is the investment that the Italian government gives at the first glance. So there are 50 million allocated for repair the damage to the building, to the residential buildings. I repeat, nothing tremendous, no building collapse, but many buildings not safe to be repaired. Another decree of 2025 defined the procedure of accesses in the next 5 years, 20 million per year, for people that want to upgrade the vulnerability. So that upgrade the buildings to reduce the vulnerability, also if they do not have had any damage. So for buildings that are still there, but that are classified as vulnerable, and are this potentiality of reducing and making local strengthening and so on. And this is done according to the second analysis, the Curtis one, the most detailed one. And we have had 1,000 requests. So on 9,000 buildings that was surveyed with the Plinius at the territorial scale, and we define the priority and the quantification of money, then 1,000 buildings required, the owners of 1,000 buildings require for Curtis, and the potential, obviously, finance. To give a glance to what has been done, the real crisis, and what has been the parallel work of the GOBEYOND multi-hazard impact, you see here this scheme where you can see that we have evaluate an integration between hazard, vulnerability, exposure. This is done by using the INGV hazard for bradisism signal and dashfall input. The EASY platform, that is the platform that the Plinius Study Center has, and that works in real time in connection with the National Department of Civil Protection and with the Pozzuoli municipality. Then the works that we have taken advantage from the real crisis by collection all this data, for which in GOBEYOND there were no budget to do that. So, but that working in the real crisis, we were able to collect all this data, and we merge this work in the GOBEYOND platform by giving impact maps, scenario, priority action. This is actually what the easy tool does, that has been merged completely. And as you see, there are this is for ashfall. The previous one was for earthquakes. We are, let me see if I'm able to go back or not. Okay, this is for earthquakes. So we take the signal directly from INGV, and we, working on our exposure database and vulnerability function, define the map for building damage, building not usable, unsafe, and the possible building collapse, and also the victims. What you see here is just example of that. There is always an interval, a medium value and interval of minimum and maximum expected value according different municipality. The same idea, the same concept is developed for ashfall. So according to the meteo forecast, the INGV give us a file with the possible fallout, and we put on GIS the fallout, and according our exposure and vulnerability value, define the impact for homeless, for building and roof collapse, and so on. I think that I finish here. The last thing that I want to mention, and then I stop here, is that with the great collaboration of the research group of Aldo Zollo, we have now implemented a procedure for the shake map. As you have seen in the last slide, we had a uniform, an isotropic hazard map, because that was as we were used to do since a few months ago. That was starting from epicenter, attenuation low. That was obviously discussed and agreed with Zollo in this group, but now we are able to evaluate, starting from directly from the registration of INGV in quasi real time, the shake map. And this has been done also recently for the last earthquakes. That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Zuccaro. I now hand over to Anna Maria Criscuolo from the Civil Protection Office of the Municipality of Pozzuoli, and Christian Rivera from ITS. Anna Maria will show us how the GOBEYOND platform has been designed to support emergency management in practice, and Christian show a live demonstration of the platform.
Good morning, everyone. I am Anna Maria Criscuolo from the Civil Protection Office of the Municipality of Pozzuoli. Let me tell you what it actually means in practice to receive a seismic alert in Pozzuoli and manage the response. The GOBEYOND platform, technically called the Argos City Dashboard, introduced for the first time an impact-based approach to supporting our decision. Risk, as you know, is not only the hazard, it is the hazard combined with building vulnerability and exposure of the population. The platform integrates all three of these elements and makes them available to operators in near real time. This is the main screen of the platform, configured for the municipality of Pozzuoli. You can see the active alerts for seismicity, bradism, ashfall, landslides, wind, temperature, and the map of the municipality territory. Under normal condition, the platform shows the monitoring situation. When an event occurs, it activates and immediately provides the first impact estimates. Before GOBEYOND, after an earthquake, we would only receive the IRGB alert with magnitude and epicenter in a framework of half an hour from the event occurrence. We had no immediate picture of where and how badly buildings had been affected. We had to wait for field inspection, which took hours. In the event of a seismic event, the platform immediately displays the ground shaking map. You can see the concentric rings radiating from the epicenter with the PGA values, the peak ground acceleration for each area. This allows us to understand within seconds which areas of the municipality have been most exposed and to orient the first response actions before we even receive reports from citizens. Even minutes can count. By combining the which was built through the Plinius survey of 2024, the platform identifies the critical areas, meaning those where the probability of building damage is highest. This cell-based map, shown in shades of burgundy, becomes our priority list for inspections. Before GOBEYOND, technicians and volunteers were deployed essentially at random, covering the territory blindly or according to the first reports from citizens. Now we have a science-based prioritization. This reduces time and improves the effectiveness of response. The platform also manages ashfall scenarios in manual mode. This screen shows the simulation of ash load for a medium scenario using data from 17th of April 2026. The colored plume shows the direction and intensity of dispersal. The municipality of Pozzuoli falls within the zone of potential impact. This scenario allows us to plan preventive measures in advance, from informing the population to pre-alerting health services to preparing shelter sites. We do not wait for the emergency, we prepare for it beforehand. Over this same scenario, the platform overlays the roof damage layer. How many and where based on the hash load and building vulnerability. The legend shows the expected number of collapsed roof per cell. This information is invaluable for planning the emergency response. We know in advance which areas are likely to have the most damaged building, where to concentrate inspection teams, where to preposition rescue equipment. It transforms our preparedness from reactive to proactive. This photograph was taken during a local exercise. You can see civil protection volunteers in the field. And in the top right corner, the Argos Cities platform open on a laptop. In the bottom right, operators are consulting the maps on a tablet. This is not a demo, it is not a laboratory test. It is the platform being used in a real exercise by real people who tomorrow will use it in a real emergency. This is the goal of GOBEYOND, not to build tools that end up in drawers, but tools that enter the operational procedures of authorities. Let me briefly describe how the municipality of Pozzuoli response cycle works during a significant seismic event. On the preparedness side, we have an emergency response plan that integrates the scenario defined by Law Decree 140 of 2023 and an operational response model. We have a communication plan for disseminating information to citizens, areas and shelter location. When an event occurs, the mayors convenes the crisis unit. The municipal police and civil protection volunteers begin collecting damage reports. The mayor assesses whether to activate the Municipal Emergency Operations Center, named COC. Building inspection begin using the EDES form. EDES stands for Habitability and Damage in Seismic Emergency, and that are usability assessment forms. Meanwhile, we must communicate with the population promptly through multiple channels, the institutional website, the social media, and local broadcasters. And we must maintain a continuous flow of information with the regional and national coordination centers. All of this happens in parallel, often with incomplete data within a few hours. Let me be very concrete about what actually happens after each seismic was warm. At the moment of detection, we receive only the INGV alert. We have no immediate picture of where buildings have been affected. In the damage reporting phase, citizens file IPP forms. The municipal police and volunteers carry out inspection according to the first reports from citizens or on the base of where people take the streets out of fear. This takes hours. Meanwhile, the mayor must open if evacuate some buildings or some areas, and which zone and on what basis, and using what type of information. When IDES engineers must be deployed for building inspection, they have no priority list. They cover the territory blindly. And our communication to citizens risk begin generic. We are monitoring the situation because we do not yet have a territorial picture of the damage. The question we asked together with GOBEYOND is how do we transform scientific information into concrete action under time pressure? In this slide, the practical answer is shown step by step. At the moment of event detection, Argos City Plus is a platform produce a map of estimated buildings per municipality within minutes of the event. Before any volunteer has reached the field, the COC, the Municipal Operational Center, immediately sees the estimated impact by zone, not just earthquake intensity. For damage reporting, these impact maps give the municipality police and EDES teams a spatial prioritization inspection list. Teams are deployed first to the cells with the highest density of Class A buildings, eliminating blind coverage and cutting time in the field. For COC activation, the multi-hazard dashboard earthquake, brideism, and ashfall shows minimum, mean, and maximum damage scenarios. The mayor and the crisis unit can compare scenarios and activate protocols with explicit confidence bounds, not intuition, by defining the extent of support for the population evacuated in terms of reception and assistance. The citizen communication can be tailored on the information provided by the platform in terms of most affected area, allowing to prioritize support action like setting of waiting areas, starting from those located in the radiating ring with the PGA values nearest to the epicenter. The communication will be able to provide information on the first waiting area currently being set up and on the presence of volunteers to provide support in these areas. For long-term preparedness, the platform stores event records, damage distribution, and the response timeline, building an institutional memory linked to the Pozzuoli's 2050 municipal urban plan, which will improve every future response. Now, 5 lessons learned from Pozzuoli Pilot, which emerged from the second workshop in April. First, a direct channel between INGV monitoring and municipal civil protection is essential during active unrest. It cannot be mediated by too many intermediate steps. Second, the municipality needs impact estimates, damaged buildings, potentially displaced people, not just seismic intensity maps. Third, the GOBEYOND is a platform, reduce time to awareness after events, integration into the operational municipal center workflow proved effective. Fourth, preparedness enables response. Predefined scenarios, plans, and training, such as the Campi Flegrei 2024 exercise, are fundamental. Platforms only work when people know how to use them. Fifth, communication is a core activity, not a residual one. Timely multi-channel communication to the public is as important as technical decision support. Now I can give back the word to Daniela.
Yes, now
Christian, sorry,
Christian for the live demonstration. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will share my screen, and I'll be a little bit brief because I think we are a little bit past the time of the meeting. But just to show you a very quick demo of how all of this data that we have been discussing now during the webinar is that we have tried firstly to try to integrate all the different data that it's available in some cases in European scale, but also in local scale. As we were seeing in the presentation, some of the vulnerability or risk layers have been integrated into the system so that it also is available for all the technicians that need to consult the information. And what we see right now, it's basically the starting point where all the users enter when they log into the platform. They see like a quick dashboard to display what is happening on the territory. And for example, right now we are seeing that for Pozzuoli right now today, there's an active official meteorological warning for rain and thunderstorm, and expected to be, for example, and the main idea here is to display very quickly what is happening, not only for the seismic hazards, but also for meteorological hazards, as this is one of the main points of the project, to be a multi-hazard, a multi-risk platform. Okay, so as I mentioned, this dashboard gives you a very quick summary of what is expected. For example, in this case, we can see also a metagram of what is expected for this week, what is the forecast for this week, and a summary of all the different hazards that may affect the region. Okay, and then we have other layers that are relevant or may be relevant for the user, and they can modify them and interact and define how they want to show these dashboards. Okay, they have a lot of freedom in the definition of what information is presented here and how they want to organize it. And they can even prepare some specific dashboard for each of the users, so we can have like a more institutional dashboards that are focused on a specific situations, for example, for the ashfall, the earthquakes, etc. And then each user can have a specific dashboard for their own usage, where they have the data and arrange as they need. Okay. Then I will go to the real-time platform. Okay, and here, for example, what we are seeing is these ash load simulations that we receive each day. So each day it's generated a new simulation, and we receive the data and present the information to the system. So each time new data is arrived, at that moment the system integrates and plays information. And here we're presenting the three different scenarios, in this case, the low scenario, medium scenario, and high scenario of how this would look like in case of a real eruption. Okay. And I want to show you, for example, one of the main points of the platform is that it not only works for real time, but it also keeps storing all the information that it's integrated into the system in a historical, let's say, database. Okay, so that the user can access directly what is happening right now, but in case of need, they can access the, sorry, I'll remove this here. Okay, they can access what is the historical viewer, okay, where they can go there and see data for historical previous events. And this is also useful, especially for some of the seismic hazards, because not always there's a present emergency. So the user can go to a specific point in time. Okay, I will show you here a specific point in time and see the data that was available at that moment. Okay, here, for example, the presentation of this historical view is mostly the same. It changes basically the header, where the user have a selector to define where they want to go. Okay, and this also is useful for these trainings for new technicians or other people that want to see how the system would react in a real event, and not only in real time where there may not be a current emergency. Okay, so here, for example, we can define different episode information that, for example, is focused on different hazards. In this case, we have defined some of those. For example, some seismic activity that happened around 2025 and 2024. Okay, and the user have this information to know where these specific events happened. For example, the starting time, then date, which hazards were affected by this, and then they can go and see more specific details on this. They have like a summary description of what represents this. And the most important thing, one of the most important thing, is the key moments. Okay, because here we define, for example, when the main event, when it happened, but we can also pinpoint specific points in time when some specifically relevant events happen. So in this case, for example, the INGB detected an earthquake with a magnitude of 4.6, so which is very, very high, and another information. And this act also as like a quick point in time. So if we click here, the system will go back to that moment and display information. And before I do that, I can show you that it also works as a repository. So the users can also have information related to that event. So the users can upload, for example, some images of the real impact after the episode, and another, for example, relevant information or or documents that may be relevant. Okay, so I will go to one of these events, and here, for example, the system, what it did was load the information at that specific point in time. So we are seeing, for example, the 13th of March in 2025 at around 1 in the morning. Okay, and here is when it was detected this specific big event. Okay, and you can see it's 4.6, and as Julie was showing before, this also generates after the event a shake map with, in this case, the PGA values. So when the user clicks here, it gets the information on this specific event, for example, the depth, the date, and the magnitude, but also information directly linked to this earthquake, like this shake map. Okay, and right now, for example, it's showing you only the area shake map, but we are working right now to include other kind of shake maps, for example, focus on the intensity and not only on the PGA, so that the user have more options to define what information they want to see and based on their current needs. Okay, so as I mentioned here, the main points of the system is that it tries to load a lot of information that the user may need in the case of an emergency, see it for a static layer or real-time information like the earthquakes or the ashfall simulations that we were seeing before, that continuously keep being updated and stored in this historical database, so that the user can then later on consult and see the information by themselves. Okay, so I will stop here to just give you very quick information on how the system is working. But the main idea is that during the project, we will keep integrating more information and more features so that the user, especially the users in civil protection, can have very useful information and can provide real results in their day-to-day work.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Anna Maria. Thank you all for joining us, and good morning.